the next 2 weeks, this White House does feel like, as evidenced by the president's remarks, it is going to push back on this as aggressively as it can.
Summer vacation in New Jersey. You know that is music to my ears. All right, Peter, I got to bring my panel in because it is a good one. Bloomberg News White House reporter and dear friend of mine, Shannon Pettypiece, and my panel. I'm psyched for this one today. MSNBC political contributor and politics editor at TheRoot.com, just back from California, Jason Johnson, and New York Times reporter Kate Kelly, who covers Wall Street and is just back from a family trip in Ohio. We're just adding some of that family vacation context. Shannon, I got to start with you. You were in D.C., you cover the White House. What are sources telling you about how the Trump administration is digesting the grand jury news? Like, how do you even say hoax, hoax, untrue when this is happening?
I remember back to the May time period and talking to people in the White House who told me that they genuinely thought this Mueller investigation would be wrapped up by the fall. Well, you know, this will be a distraction over the summer, and by the fall we'll be able to move on. And I let them say, okay, all right, you know. And here we are. It's August, and now we're just at the grand jury stage. It kind of shows there's a long road ahead. And what's happened in past investigations involving administrations is, you know, not only will the principal key players get brought in, but there's going to be a number of people from the West Wing who get brought in as witnesses, even if they didn't do anything wrong. But so a number of people from the West Wing, from the principals like Reince Priebus, all the way down to people like secretaries or press assistants, are going to be called in front of a grand jury. I mean, that's what's traditionally happened, just to give their side of the story. That means they all have to hire lawyers. They all get big legal bills. They can't talk to each other, because if they talk to each other, they can be corroborating. There's going to be a lot of suspicion in the West Wing. That's what's happened in the past about, is someone saying something about me, or what should I be saying? So it's really going to start infecting the West Wing, and that's the risk here for this administration at this point, aside from the investigation and any charges, but this the distraction and the suspicion and all the things that come with now having a West Wing embroiled in a grand jury investigation.
All right, clearly Shannon and I talked to different people inside the White House, because those I speak to never thought it was going to end this early, but what they did think was, well, I didn't have anything to do with it. I'm going to separate myself out. Given the context of what Shannon just said, all the people who are going to be brought in and questioned, and it doesn't matter if Trump's base doesn't like the media, when you are facing a grand jury in private and have to go to work every day at the White House, what is this going to be like?
It's going to be the most toxic work environment ever, because everyone's going to want to stab everybody else in the back. You don't know what that person told. You don't know what you're going to start
more than they already do.
Exactly, more than they already do. You don't know who's checking your emails. You're going back through your phone. It's going to be a very, very, very toxic environment in what is already a problematic environment. And also, when they speak in public and when they interact with other people they've got to make deals with, you can't do this sort of Leslie Nielsen, nothing to see here, nothing to see here. There is now a grand jury. There is something to see here.
All right, Kate, the president's attorney, Ty Cobb, said there is no reason to believe, he has no reason to believe that the president is under investigation. Is that not? Yes, for the time being, but clearly they're going to be going after quite a lot.
Sure. I mean, the thing here that's going to cause a lot of nerves is the lack of information really about what is happening based on the impanelment of the grand jury. Politico had a good column on this written by an attorney talking about how the one thing we do know is that Mueller is now pursuing a case that is criminal in nature, as opposed to just a counterintelligence investigation. And he has the authority to go very broad. It's true that we don't have specific information that the president is under investigation. We don't know, although we could make educated guesses as to who Mueller's targets could be in the criminal investigation. But absolutely, it's going to create a lot of concern. The apprehension, the uncertainty is the worst thing.
But also the lack of transparency. The Wall Street Journal a week ago said, President Trump, if you want to have a successful presidency, open your kimono. Tell us what's going on. Shannon, I have to share something that the president said last night on the podium. Just listen to this.
Most people know there were no Russians in our campaign. There never were. We didn't win because of Russia.
Okay, I'm saying this tongue-in-cheek, Shannon, but for the president, now, given how serious this is, to even get on a stage in West Virginia and say Russians, never any Russians, not in our campaign, I don't know. I remember sitting across from Boris Epstein about 15 times during the campaign and after. And last I checked, he was born in Moscow. So what is the president thinking with this kind of narrative?
The strategy that they're taking makes no sense to lawyers who I talked to who've been involved in these cases before in Whitewater, Iran-Contra. The strategy you're supposed to take is stop talking about it, say, you know, we did nothing wrong, we have nothing to hide, we'll cooperate with the investigators, we hope it's a quick and swift investigation. Don't keep talking about it, don't keep tweeting about it, don't make it an issue. Talk about your agenda, talk about what you're doing as president, talk about issues that people care about. The administration keeps going on about how no one cares about Russia, and yet this speech, you could clearly tell this is something that is, like many issues, grating at the president. He can't contain it. He has to get it out. But, hey, there's a jobs message, an economy message they want to talk about.
Right, and
they
he's
could be putting pressure on
capitalizing
Congress.
on that this morning. I mean, I think the strategy last night is very much of a piece of the way that Trump handles potentially sensitive situations that are getting under his skin. And actually, I think it's good politics for his base at the very least. Think about the West Virginia governor switching parties as part of this event last night. I mean, there's been good reporting on it this morning, but I look forward to hearing more of the backstory.
And hallelujah, praise the Lord. This tent show revival really worked. But in terms of
it does work, though, Stephanie, because he's still got a strong base of support. I just came back from this family trip to Ohio. It is still Trump country. His supporters do not care about the details of these investigations.
But at this point, it's not about his supporters because the guy is 3 years away from an election. This is about, can I get anything through the through the House and Senate because nobody trusts me?
It's true,
can
but
I interact with anybody else because no one trusts me? And lots of people now in my own office think I might be going down.
I'm not saying that's not a major issue, but I think the support matters because it translates into how much support he has within the Congress, within the Senate, you know, based on their read of the
All right, then exactly on that note, you have to think about now this bipartisan push that we're hearing to keep Robert Mueller in his position. I mean, Lindsey Graham from South Carolina, a good old southern state, saying we need to do everything possible to keep Robert Mueller in his position. If the president goes ahead and fires him, that's going to be the downfall of his presidency.
At this point, everyone, and this was happening, I think, slowly but surely, even before the impaneling of the grand jury. I think the whole reason that Mueller was appointed and the reason the Senate was okay with it is they're like, look, if this blows up, we do not want this grenade in our hands. And the fact that they're now trying to insulate Mueller, it's like, look, none of us want to be associated with this. If he finds something great, if he doesn't find something great, but they're trying to protect themselves. And again, I believe if they can't get any major policy done this year and no one can get anything during an election year, it is every man and woman in the Republican Senate and the House for themselves.
Absolutely, and a lot is riding on this tax reform package that the president hopefully will focus on, at least if you talk to his advisors.
It's unclear whether he's going to focus on tax reform, but he's definitely running a victory lap on the jobs report. Peter Alexander, I want to bring you back into this conversation. The market is not even, I wouldn't even say doing well. The market has clearly been on a tear since the election. The market has steadily improved since the last election, but when you look at that jobs number this morning, it is a good one.
You know, that's exactly right. More than 200,000 jobs created in the last month. Unemployment rate now at basically a 16-year low. These are the points the president wants to be talking about, and he is this morning. Again, on Twitter, he just tweeted the following: excellent jobs numbers just released, and I've only just begun. Many job-stifling regulations continue to fall. Movement back to the United States. Today, he's also touting Mazda and Toyota with the planned construction of a new plant here. I believe there will be several thousand more jobs in the future on that. This is the topic the White House thinks serves itself best. But what's striking as you talk about Wall Street and the numbers, how well the markets are doing right now, is I talk to people, Trump supporters, who were sort of bought into that populist message. Wall Street, what's happening there, does not benefit them in the same way that it may do the people in New York City and Washington, D.C. on the coast, given so few Americans are as invested. Yes, Stephanie?
You bring up the absolute best point. This is one of the reasons Trump supporters came to be. It was President Obama touting the strong market and the economic recovery, is when you heard people throughout the country say, are you kidding me? I don't own stocks. Right. Only 20%, the highest 20% of the income bracket in this country own 92% of the stocks.
You're exactly right.
So the majority of those people who are in that base, who are at those rallies, aren't benefiting from this. Kate, could this be a huge mistake for the president when we're really not seeing wages increase?
Well, number one, I don't think he has a lot of positive talking points at the moment. Number two, just pointing to a record that frequently sets all-time highs is just a good, solid thing to point to in terms of a success during the time that he's been in office. What's interesting, I find, is that I think there was an ebullience about the Trump administration and the conservative agenda that was likely to be passed, you know, the health care, taxes, infrastructure spend early on this year. I think we expected that perhaps to taper off as the reality of passing that agenda and how difficult it was set in. But in fact, what we got was a very strong earnings season. And the notion that companies are strong in the U.S., whether it's because they moved a few jobs back or not.
And those companies are no longer worried about more regulation.
Right.
Even if Trump doesn't deregulate, there was a huge regulatory overhang and a fear. When you had a President Obama and an Elizabeth Warren in such a position of power, you didn't see companies spending all that cash on their balance sheet. It wasn't happening.
Look, it's now 6-7 months into the presidency. Trump can actually take credit for some of this economy. This is not just sort of,
the
he's
data
not just
hasn't
drafting.
even gone through the system.
He can't just say, you know, he's not entirely just drafting Obama. But I will say this. Some of the urban numbers are good. Unemployment is down in Cleveland. Unemployment is down in Pittsburgh. Unemployment is down in Baltimore. But here's the problem. All these job numbers, which seem so positive for President Trump, he's still under 40%. So if jobs aren't making him more popular, what is this president going to be able to do? Because he's still underwater.
Well, you can't argue. Business sentiment is up. Big business, small business, it is a positive. But you know what sentiment is? It's just a feeling. Feelings change. All right, we're going to take a break. 15 minutes away from